The story of Joan of Arc begins not in glory, but in silence. Joan was a peasant girl, born in the small village of Domremy. She was ordinary in the eyes of the world, yet her heart carried a flame no one could see. From a young age, Joan spoke of visions, voices that called to her from heaven, urging her to save France from ruin. The land was broken. England pressed its claim on the French crown. The Dauphin, Charles, seemed weak, uncertain, trapped in doubt and fear. But Joan was certain. She believed God had chosen her to drive the English away and to see Charles crowned king. Though she was only a girl with no armor, no training, no noble blood, she walked into the court of the Dauphin and demanded an audience. She looked into the eyes of a prince, surrounded by priests, generals, and doubters, and said she carried the will of God. They mocked her. They questioned her. They thought her a child deluded. But Joan stood firm, and in time they believed. For the spark of her conviction lit a fire in their weary hearts. Armor was fitted upon her shoulders. A banner was placed in her hands, and she rode not as a soldier, but as a symbol of heaven's favor. When Joan entered the battlefields of France, men who had lost hope rallied once more. At Orléans, she lifted the siege and turned despair into victory. The soldiers cheered her name. The people whispered of a maiden sent by God. The Dauphin Charles was crowned in Rouen cathedral. With Joan by his side, she had given him a crown. She had given him a kingdom, but the crown she placed upon his head would not protect her. For kings are fickle, and power is cruel. After the crowning, Charles distanced himself from Joan. The same voices who once doubted her now whispered against her. Priests who envied her faith, generals who feared her influence, nobles who despised a peasant girl, commanding loyalty greater than their own. And when Joan was captured outside the walls of Compiègne, Charles did not come for her. The king she had saved abandoned her. The court that had crowned him turned their backs on her. Joan was sold to the English, betrayed into the hands of her enemies. And there in Rouen, a trial was staged, a trial not for justice, but for revenge. The church twisted its holy words into chains, priests dressed in robes of faith, but carrying the hearts of wolves. They called her a witch. They said her visions were lies. They claimed the voices she heard were demons in disguise. Joan stood in the court alone. She was 19 years old. She had fought like no man could. She had prayed like no priest dared, and still they condemned her. For the church had become a weapon in the hands of power, and the girl who had lifted a nation was dragged to the stake. In the market square of Rouen, the crowd gathered. Flames licked the wood piled at her feet. Smoke rose into the gray morning sky. Joan's face glowed not with fear, but with faith. She called upon the name of Jesus. As the fire rose higher, the crowd watched. The priests muttered their lies. The English waited for her screams, but her soul rose above the fire. Joan of Arc burned in the square, but her spirit could not be destroyed. For though the flames consumed her body, her memory became eternal. She had been betrayed by the king she saved, condemned by a corrupt church, burned as a witch. But history would remember her not as the witch of Rouen, but as the saint of France. For the ashes of her death became the seeds of her immortality. And the voice of a peasant girl, silenced by fire, still echoes through the ages, reminding us that faith can defy kings, that courage can shame armies, and that truth, even in flames, cannot be destroyed.